Hi and welcome to this video. Welcome to this channel. I welcome you all. Now, what I'm doing here today is probably self-explanatory. A lot of us Africans do eat peanuts. However, today I decided after a long time, to just buy a bulk amount of peanuts and roast them myself. Ordinarily speaking, in East Africa, we do tend to, not always, but we could mix them with popcorns, soya. I don't have soya beans today, but I do have popcorns, and I'll also be adding raisins to this. So just watch along and we can talk about the topic for today, which is isolation and loneliness in marriage. Now, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people may think that perhaps when they are married, that is it. All loneliness and potentially even all isolation is gone. That is it. However, in my last video, I spoke about some of the 5 things that could come into challenge, make a marriage suffer, and potentially even lead to separation or divorce in a marriage. It's not something that we really want. However, here in the United Kingdom, or for those of us that are abroad, I think the challenges, play up more. The challenges are a lot more because we are now in different environments. We're in different countries. There are different cultures, and of course, the dynamics of life change. Now, when I speak about isolation and loneliness in a marriage, I'm very much talking about where a situation where two people are probably, uh, where perhaps potentially communication has broken and has become quite deep, that now one or two people will feel more isolated. Chances are that two people will definitely feel more isolated because, of course, you are cleaved together. And in a marriage, you are meant to at least communicate about your everyday life, communicate about family, communicate about the future, and communicate about so many other things. Now, when that breaks down, the next thing that actually occurs is levels of isolation and loneliness. Um, how does loneliness actually play into a marriage? Somebody may ask that. How does that even work? Well, I believe that for a start, where two parties stop doing things together and one party or other party or both decide to do things without, for instance, communication or in consultation with one another, for instance, regarding finances. It could to do with parenting, how to parent children. It could do to do with where do we go on holiday, when do we go, and how much do we spend. It could do with where are we going. It could do with even are we going together or not. Because there comes a time when deep isolation and loneliness sets in, then either party, because of some levels of misunderstanding and resentment, can begin to actually do what they feel is best for them, rather than the interest of the entire family or the marriage or the union or the relationship. People can begin to feel that, oh, I will go there and I will do this and I will do my own thing, you do your own. That's already an indication of loneliness and isolation that are set in a marriage, because there's no longer now a connection. There's no longer now a bond. And this is not to say that it cannot be worked on, it can. And the next thing, and that actually leads me to talk about, um, it's possible for a connection and a bond to break. It's so deep that it can be so deep that when that isolation is in, you now find that silence also comes in. Silence. When I say silence, it could be, well, there's extremes of silence. Yeah, there's other levels of silence that could be narcissistic. The person might be, either person could be, I'm going to keep quiet because I'm so deeply upset and saddened, and I'm not going to say anything about this, but rather I'll sweep it under the carpet. Well, when things are swept under the carpet, um, they've not been dealt with, have they? Some emotions, especially women, they are more emotional than men. When emotions and issues are not dealt with adequately, they are not spoken about and swept under the carpet, that is going to breed a deep sense of isolation in a marriage. Now, before you know it, when that comes in, then either party could start connections, perhaps outside. Maybe they'll take the issues outside the marriage now. Before you know it, because you've not entrusted issues and emotions with your partner, your husband, your wife, it's being taken elsewhere, and that gives um, a third party. It can almost allow a third party into a marriage, and that has taken the emotion away. Why? Because that person is so isolated, that person is so lonely in a marriage that they feel the need to take whatever is going on and the emotion externally. In that case, although we are not talking about what to do in such a case, in that case, it is potentially possible to say and accept that perhaps counseling or therapy is needed in that, in a marriage, to actually see where the gap is and how the two people can be brought back together so that that union begins to um, so that things are rectified, and so that perhaps the gap that's creating so much isolation and loneliness is actually closed a lot more. Now, left unchecked, this could actually lead to separation. And one of the things I would say about this loneliness and isolation is, I would say that if two, if a couple begin to do things differently, separately, take breaks separately, take holidays separately, make decisions quietly and perhaps even secretly, financial decisions, and the other party starts to do things on their own. And of course, we are talking about even physical, um, you know, work in the home. We are talking about household duties, where in UK we need more support, and the two people rely on each other for even house chores, for instance. And nobody is saying that um, one person should not do chores that belong to perhaps a gender. For instance, in our African culture, some people could say that is not my role, it's a woman's role. It's a woman's role to enter the kitchen, to wash dishes and cook. It's a, well, what happens if both people are working so hard, and the first person comes home and sits and waits for the other person to come home and start cooking or start chores? Don't we think that that would potentially breed resentment and lead to isolation and loneliness? And that leads me to one of the points that I'd like to make today. Leaving the other spouse in the home and heading out for activities, whether it's to do with social activities on your own. I understand that there are activities that will mean that either party have to go on their own. Marriages or people do need time spent apart sometimes, but not all the time, and that is not something that should take over roles in the family, for instance. It should never ever be something that is done a lot more than a role in the family. And not, of course, without discussing it with the other person. But when the other person decides to spend more time outdoors and do their own thing and leave the other person at home to deal with everything, that is another level of loneliness and isolation all by itself. So at this point, I believe that I've covered for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I have made popcorn. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm having popcorn with mixed with peanuts here and raisins, which I had actually bought, from the African food shop. This is something that is very typical to East Africa for tea in the morning, breakfast, snacks, and to serve visitors. Thank you so much. Bye bye.